Fatal attacks by black bears are exceedingly rare, but when they do occur, they are almost exclusively predatory in nature. On September 6, 2005, 30-year-old Dr. Jacqueline Perry and her husband Mark Jordan set up camp in a remote section of Missinaba Lake Provincial Park in Ontario, Canada. The couple was preparing dinner in their campsite when a large male black bear emerged from the tree line. The animal made no vocalizations. It displayed no signs of defensive aggression, such as huffing or jaw-popping. The bear approached with silent, deliberate focus, viewing the humans strictly as a food source. The bear immediately lunged at Jacqueline, knocking her to the ground and sinking its teeth into her body. Mark Jordan, possessing no firearms or bear spray, attacked the predator bare-handed. He repeatedly punched the bear in the head, attempting to draw its attention away from his wife. When the blunt force had absolutely no effect, Mark pulled out a 2-inch Swiss Army pocket knife and began stabbing the bear dozens of times in the neck, snout, and eyes. Despite the tiny blade, Mark continued striking the predator with maximum force, sustaining severe defensive lacerations to his own face and arms from the bear's claws. Eventually, suffering from multiple stab wounds, the bear released Jacqueline and slowly walked back into the woods. Jacqueline was still alive, but had suffered massive, catastrophic trauma to her neck and cranium. Bleeding heavily, Mark dragged his wife into their canoe and frantically began paddling onto the lake to seek help. The park was entirely deserted. For over an hour, he paddled desperately while Jacqueline bled out on the floor of the small boat. The structural damage to her arteries was too severe. Dr. Jacqueline Perry succumbed to her injuries before they could reach a ranger station. Mark Jordan survived and was airlifted to a hospital. Investigators from the Ontario Ministry of Natural Resources arrived at the campsite the following day. Following a trail of blood, they found the black bear dead approximately 50 yards from the attack site. A forensic necropsy revealed that one of Mark's strikes with the tiny pocket knife had miraculously severed the animal's jugular vein. The bear weighed roughly 300 pounds and was in perfect physical health, confirming the chilling motive. It had not attacked out of disease or starvation, but purely to hunt humans for sustenance. On May 7, 2014, 36-year-old Lorna Weaver was working at a Suncor Energy oil sands facility near Fort McMurray, Alberta. This was a massive, heavily industrialized and loud operational site where the presence of dangerous wildlife was considered statistically improbable. The attack occurred in broad daylight, in direct view of dozens of her colleagues. Lorna exited a workspace module and walked toward a portable washroom located on the perimeter of a cleared gravel pad. At that exact moment, a large male black bear emerged from the adjacent forest. Much like the Missinaba incident, the bear operated with complete silence and predatory intent. It cut off Lorna's path, instantly charged her, and pinned her to the ground. Lorna's co-workers heard her screams and sprinted toward the perimeter. Approximately 6 men rushed the bear. Because Canadian industrial safety regulations strictly prohibit the carrying of personal firearms on oil sites, the workers had nothing but improvised tools. They shouted, threw heavy rocks, steel pipes, and wrenches directly at the animal. The bear ignored the impacts completely. It clamped its jaws onto Lorna and began dragging her toward the tree line. Workers activated industrial air horns, producing deafening blasts of sound, but the predator did not even flinch. They mobilized heavy machinery, revving diesel engines to scare it, and deployed high-pressure fire hoses, blasting the bear with hundreds of gallons of water. The bear simply turned its head slightly to avoid the water pressure, continuing to maul the woman right in front of her co-workers. One worker attempted to step within striking distance with a steel crowbar, but the bear made a sudden, aggressive bluff charge, forcing the man to retreat before returning to its victim. Lorna Weaver ceased struggling and died from exsanguination and massive tissue damage directly on the worksite pad. Her colleagues were forced to stand by, entirely powerless to stop the execution. Minutes later, an armed officer from the Royal Canadian Mounted Police arrived on the scene. The bear was still standing over Lorna's body. The officer unholstered his weapon and shot the animal dead. A necropsy showed the male bear weighed 350 pounds, exhibited no signs of illness, and had a stomach full of natural forage. Biologists classified the event as highly anomalous predatory behavior. The tragedy forced the Canadian energy sector to completely rewrite safety protocols for remote sites, mandating dedicated wildlife defense personnel and bear deterrence on all industrial perimeters.
On January 17, 2023, tragedy struck the small, isolated coastal village of Wales, Alaska, home to roughly 150 residents. Polar bear attacks on humans in the United States are exceedingly rare. The last recorded fatal incident in Alaska had occurred in 1990. However, rapid climate shifts and the extreme reduction of sea ice are increasingly forcing polar bears inland to scavenge for food. On this particular day, a severe winter storm battered the village. Visibility was reduced to absolute zero due to blowing snow and gale-force winds. 24-year-old Summer Myomick exited the local school building carrying her 1-year-old son, Clyde. Her destination was the village medical clinic, located just 130 meters away. Blinded by the whiteout and deafened by the wind, she could neither see nor hear anything in her immediate surroundings. A massive polar bear had wandered directly into the center of the settlement. It emerged from the blizzard and ambushed Summer and her infant in the middle of the street, halfway between the school and the clinic. Polar bears are hyper-carnivores. Their diets consist almost entirely of meat, and their attacks on humans are invariably predatory. School staff heard the screams cutting through the wind and rushed outside. School principal Don Brown and several teachers attempted to physically fight off the apex predator. Brown grabbed a metal snow shovel and repeatedly struck the bear across the face. The polar bear immediately pivoted and charged the principal. Brown and the teachers barely made it back inside the school, slamming and locking the heavy metal doors just in time. The bear threw its massive weight against the entrance, attempting to snap the door hinges, but the reinforced glass and steel held. Realizing it could not breach the building, the bear returned to Summer and her infant, resuming its attack in the snow. Because the school was forced into a strict lockdown procedure, the staff could not re-emerge. They began frantically calling community members. The village of Wales does not have a permanent law enforcement presence. Minutes later, a local resident armed with a high-caliber rifle pushed his way through the blizzard toward the school. Because the whiteout conditions rendered aiming impossible from a distance, the resident had to walk within point-blank range of the predator. He fired multiple rounds, killing the bear instantly. Tragically, it was too late. Summer Myomick and 1-year-old Clyde were already dead. Medical examiners confirmed that death occurred within the first seconds of the ambush due to catastrophic blunt force and penetrating trauma. Biologists from the Alaska Department of Fish and Game recovered the bear's carcass for analysis. It was an adult male in a state of severe emaciation. The lack of stable sea ice had effectively destroyed its ability to hunt seals, driving the starving predator to the desperate extreme of entering a human settlement. The incident stands as a bleak forensic testament to how changing environmental conditions are actively increasing the frequency of fatal collisions between humans and the planet's largest terrestrial predators.